This is an English country garden, and for the next year or two, this is where we'll be filming from. I hope you enjoy it. Over the past couple of years, we've filmed the English Nursery Garden Year. We've also filmed Plantsmans Diaries, and we're going to continue with Plantsmans Diaries, but from an English country garden. So if you're going to watch this new series, I suggest you look at the other two as well. There's a lot to learn in them, and this is just a continuation. It's a bit like cooking, recipes. They're all variations very often on the same theme, and an English garden is very much a variation on the same theme. They can be primarily shrub based, perennial based, or wildflower based, but in the end it's important that it is to you personally what you want. So not all English gardens are equal, but they are personal. You all right, old man? What do you reckon? New paths, eh? So, what we got here? Starting to dig up the old paths. That's going to be the width of the new ones. But there's so much stone in this garden, it's like it grows bloody rocks. So I've only got down here, and it doesn't look like I've got very much out of it, but I'm using a lot of the smaller stuff in the pier. I'm starting to work on that. There's a couple of old sinks that I have that I've buried under here as well, but we'll just use the stone on there, and once it's laid down, we'll fill up in between with ballast, gravel, and then we'll get a wacker plate on it. I'll be using a wacker plate quite a lot, so we'll be using that on there, and then we'll put some weed retardant landscapers mulch, like sort of weed fabric, and we'll lay that on top, another inch or two of ballast, and then a nice top layer of probably pea gravel. I'll probably let Lisa decide, and that should be it. And that should give us a nice base on this. And I want to get this nice and hard and down properly. You don't want it sinking afterwards. Yeah, boy. It's been a strange week not being at Eggleston, and I haven't worked it out yet. It feels weird. You know, I'm not trying to rush things into a couple of days off. It really doesn't matter. And I'm trying to get planted up as well. There's a lot of stuff. There's that old maple I want to put in, and can't remember what they are. I got them off Matthew years ago. I put a birch in there, a white stemmed birch. There's another little maple. Probably this maple is probably Kojo no Mai. It's one of the linear ones with the long, thin leaves. Just a little beauty here that I'm going to plant up. Haven't got a clue what it is, but that will go in the ground. It is nice to see some autumn colour. This one's just been let, it's just been let go for years. It's never been fed or anything, and you can see it's become sort of stunted, but it's quite an interesting shape. So we'll just stick that in and see if it takes on a new lease of life in a year or two. Some bulbs are arriving soon, which I'm going to put in. So we're starting to get on top of things. I mean, there's masses and masses of work to do, but we will get it done, but it's going to take a year or two. And look, there's fucking old cultivars. That's why I don't like them, because they just flop over. The leaves will be up soon, but it's sort of a weird thing. So there we are. This is this, I've got as much rock in as I want to. It actually looks quite nice like it is, but it's a little bit wobbly in places. So I'll blaze a thin layer on and brush it down in between the crevices, and then let the weather, the rain or the wind, etc., just wash it in and settle it for a few days, and then I'll put a mulch over it and a bit more gravel on the top, and then a topping. I'll show you that as I go. The pier has just been wackered down now. This is just an electric wacker plate. Now I bought this because I have got so much stuff to do, so much grass, paths and things and foundations for the workshop and this, that if I rented one, I'd be forever going backwards and forwards 20 miles to rent the bugger. So there's not a great deal of point. So I bought this one for about 150 on Amazon. It's big enough for what I want, and I can use it as and when I need it. And then when I've finished it with it at the end of next year perhaps, then I'll sell it off. But it's about £50 for a weekend to rent one, and I've got to travel 20 miles to pick it up, backwards and forwards, and I have to have it in little bits off and on, you know, because I'm not up to doing great big long sessions. But yeah, it's quite effective. But right throughout the winter and next summer, I'll be using it on these paths. Starting to do a little bit of work on them. Starting to get rid of some of the stone. It's quite important that we get rid of the stone. I'm still not sure whether I can get away without steps by just putting barriers in to stop the gravel for rolling downhill. I'll have to think hard on it. But the wacker plate's done a great job. It's nice and hard now, and well formed. Just to show you how it works. It's quite quiet, really. Piece of piss. It's a wet, drizzly day, so I'm having a day in the kitchen. I had to call in Eggleston yesterday to pick something up for Lisa, and there's a little parcel there for me, and inside it was a jar of Dorset honey. Now, the only person I know that would send me that is Wendy from Bartholomew's, who is laid up at the moment with a broken wrist. So Matthew's pretty pissed off. I mean, of all the selfish things to do is to go and break your wrist. Matthew and I might strain ours, but you know, that's a different method. We don't fall off ladders. Anyway, just getting back to the honey. I've been using it for, I'm making up some flapjacks here. It's now I'm retired, I'm doing a bit more of the old kitchen stuff. So I've also been doing a lentil soup. So there's a pizza there, which is like chicken, coriander and pepper and chili and mushroom. And there's some Hasselback potatoes. I've sort of like done my own thing with them, but they're all right. That'd be nice. So there we are. That's me. Gordon Ramsay, fuck off. I bought a Gordon Ramsay book, and honest to God, I really like watching him. He makes me laugh, but it's so poncy. I know that's his job. He's like Michelin stars and all the rest of it. But the ordinary bloke, I don't want to eat that. I can't eat that. It's very hard to find one cook that you can follow all the way, or chef, as in the case of Gordon, who still makes me laugh. He's an entertainer. So I've got little bits from the Hairy Bikers. I quite like Gok Wan for his Chinese stuff. But I'll tell you who else is quite good. This is whose recipe I'm following here with the flapjacks. Is Hugh Fernley Whitenshaw, is it? Whittenstall, yeah. But he did a film at Eggleston Hall Gardens once. It was just before I got there. Yeah. What else? Yeah, that's about it really. And of course Delia Smith, but yeah, it's a bit heavy on the old butter and things. I suppose it's like all things, you just you develop your own favourites, don't you? I can't find one person. I'll tell you what I did get. I bought a set of these little books here. What are they? British sausage recipes. And then there's some for, what else is there? Home recipes, home baking. There you are, favourite Cornish recipes. Anyway, I think they're about 99 pence, so I bought quite a lot of them. And there's a lot of regional dishes, and they're really good. I think some of these posh chefs, they just take some of these regional dishes and tweak them a bit. Yeah. But there you are. As long as it's edible. And it's nice. Sometimes, sometimes I had a mate who used to eat baked beans just straight out the can. He didn't heat them up or anything. He used to eat them out of, he had no sense of smell. And grub to him was just fuel. It would shove anything down his throat. Yeah. I'm not actually quite sure. I think it's a shield bug of some sort. Probably a pest. I should know, shouldn't I? Yeah. He seems quite happy. He's got as much right to live as everybody else. Go on. Go on, there you go. Fuck off and damage something in my garden. Little bugger. We'll probably meet again one day. Just planting, healing in this rose. I like to heal things in. Well, not healing it in actually, I'm just planting it. I like to put them in with the heel of my boot. Some people stamp all over them. But anyway, this is, getting back to that, it's a lovely pink climbing rose called, or pale pink, called Ophelia. Those of you that have watched the English Nursery Garden Year will have seen me, along with Amanda, bud this particular rose. We put it onto a rugosa rootstock. So I want to see how it does. It's, what is it, October 21 at the moment. And it's having a little flower. Over the course of the year, I've been rubbing out any buds from below where we stuck the bud in. It's doing okay. What I'd like it to do is to grow nicely all over this little bower. It should do. It's certainly vigorous enough. Even on the rugosa rootstock, it should be It should be quite the thing. You have to excuse the wind today until I can find my dead cat. The muffler, it's going to be a bit windy. Now it's time to work on these borders that we've put in here and maybe naturalize some corners. So what I've done, I'm using some tulips in this corner, not because they last very long, they don't, but just put in some nice burgundy shades of tulip here. At the front I'm putting in a few Leucojum vernum, and when I've put the tulips in, I'll put a little bit of muscari, one called Mountain Lady, in between the Leucojums. So that should give me some colour in the spring, April, May time. Over here I've done a similar thing, and I've put in some pastel shades of tulips and a little bit of Leucojum. The ground area was a little bit less, so I didn't have space for the muscari. In the corners between these two beds, where there's a little bit of grassland which I've reseeded, I've put some anemones. Now, over the last year or so at Eggleston, I grew up a few anemone blanders. Not anemone blander, Nemarosas. The white one, Nemarosa alba, and Robinsoniana. So if we just take them out of the pot, you can see they're doing quite nicely in the little pots. That's the Robinsoniana. The alba is probably a little more vigorous. Let's move some of this bitter cress. It would be embarrassing if I knock out and it's a dead one. There we are. You can see the nice little shoots on the rhizome. And here, this is straightforward. Nemarosa is the wood anemone, and they're quite good in grassland or in border fronts. They don't mind a little bit of shade. Yeah, they're a nice little plant. Very pretty, very delicate. So we'll take some of these. I need about 8. Whoa, it's getting windy. I thought I would be able to. In this corner here, we'll just make a few holes just where the lawn meets the pier. Over in this piece here, I've put some of the Robinsoniana, which is a lovely wood anemone. It's just a slightly paler blue colour. We'll come back to these in the spring. But when I'm planting in grassland like this, it's very difficult to do this and film at the same time. But if you use a bulb planter, you can just take out a few plugs. So I'll show you that in a minute. It's quite simple. You just stick the thing in the ground. So we've taken out a few plugs. These are the soil plugs. This is a bit stickier in this corner than the other ones I've done. And we're just gonna just widen the hole a little bit with my fist, and then we'll just get this out of the pot. Make sure it's okay, and then just drop it in. Bit of soil on the top. This is the others have been quite a lot easier. Again, just make it the hole a little wider, with your fist, just pull it away, just because you are actually putting a square peg in a round hole. If it's a little deep like that one is, just fill it up a little bit more, and then just drop in your anemone. These should naturalize beautifully within a year or two. I think we'll stop filming now because my neighbour's children are coming. One of the things I always used to get confused about was with bulbs. You read when I was a youngster, you would read a gardening book and it would say plant the bulb at twice its depth. I never quite understood this. Is it, if the bulb is 2 inches, do you plant it at 4 inches? Well, in actual fact, what it means is that twice the depth of soil above the bulb. So if a bulb is 2 inches, you need to plant it with 4 inches of soil above it. So in actual fact, you're planting it the whole 3 times the height of the bulb. I hope this makes sense. But it's always been confusing, and a lot of people still get confused. They think, oh, well, the bulb's 2 inches, so I'll plant that at 4 inches, twice its depth. Twice its depth of soil above the bulb. With the bigger bulbs, I'd go even 3 times. I think that they do a lot better like that in the ground. Not so much in pots, because they can waterlog in pots, but in the ground. And there's certain bulbs, lilies amongst them, lilies in particular, they need to go really well down, maybe 4 times, because they root along their stem. So yeah, so it can be confusing, so hopefully that's tidied that little conundrum up. There are some things in the old life I'm not prepared to give up. So here's Randy Mandy.
Well, I'm back in Poetry Corner, first time in ages. Back up at the garden, and it's a lovely October day. Breeze is blowing, it's quite a stiff breeze, it's quite cold, but that's okay. I miss Malcolm, though he claims he doesn't miss us at all. I mean, it's very strange being in the garden, knowing that nobody's going to jump out at you at any moment brandishing a hose pipe, and it's okay to wander around the shrubbery and knowing you're not going to stumble upon anybody who might be in flagrante, so to speak. So yes, it's odd. I'm in the graveyard, as I'm always in the graveyard because it's such a lovely place, but I've discovered that I've told you before, I think there's goldcrests here, which we hardly ever see, but I've discovered that if you play a goldcrest song on YouTube on your phone, pop your phone in a tree, the goldcrests actually come down. They do that all the time, so I've now seen loads and loads of them, and they're the most beautiful little birds ever. They like to go into yew trees and conifers and things, and this big old yew tree in the churchyard is where they hang out. So it's my ambition to get a really good photograph of them, but they move so fast I haven't done that yet. But the poem today is by Charles Tennyson, who's a 19th century English poet and the big brother of Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it's also about goldcrests, so I hope you like it. When my hand closed upon thee, worn and spent with idly dashing on the window pane or clinging to the cornice, I, that meant at once to free thee, could not but detain. I dropped my pen, I left the unfinished lay to give thee back to freedom. But I took, O charm of sweet occasion, one brief look at thy bright eyes and innocent dismay. Then forth I sent thee on thy homeward quest, my lesson learnt, thy beauty got by heart. And if at times my sonnet muse would rest short of her topmost skill, her little best, the memory of thy delicate gold crest shall plead for one last touch, the crown of art.
spades. Now, I've always been a bit of a bigot with spades. I was brought up using a typical spade. That is a typical garden spade. For anybody that's been to horticultural college or grown up with gardeners will use in England. Does the job, fantastic. I used to work when I was gardening. I was a head gardener, and I used to use one of these for 6 weeks every winter, turning the soil over. No bugger does that now. It's just not done. They would either use machines or maybe not bothered because of the soil structure. We've learnt a lot. But anyway, this is a clip about spades. When I watched films from America, they would get a spade out to dig a hole, and they would use a completely different thing. They would use something like this. So, I've been using these spades this morning, so they're a bit dirty. So yeah, and I'd look at them and I'd think, look at them silly fuckers. They're using a shovel to dig a hole with. So that's what I used to think. And then about 30 years ago, I actually bought one of these. This is another American shovel. I think they use them in Ireland as well, so maybe the Americans got them from the Irish. I don't know. That is 30 years old. It has moved tons and tons of gravel and soil and ballast and various substrates. It's just done loads. It's got a carbon handle. It was bought from B&Q, and it's been one of the best tools I've ever had. So it's done a job of shoveling things. This I've learnt to use properly, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, you see it in American films, as I've said, but I've never understood it until I started digging a hole with it. Now, come over here. I'll just put that there. If the cameraman could just film the spade, because I've forgotten the English one. When you dig a hole with an English spade, you want a round hole. You're digging, it's great, you can make it round and you can flick it down, as you can see I'm doing here. But it's not natural to it, it doesn't have a curve. And then, if you can film my body, this isn't porn, it's just hole digging. You can see you've got to get right down to get the soil out. The American spade, you think to yourself, well, it's at an angle, so how can you dig a hole? Well, you do it. You can do it from the other side. So you drag the soil back to you, and then you come around this side and you just lever it back, and it comes out in scoops. And if you look at my back now, I can do it from the height. I'm not bent down, getting fucking backache all the time. So once you learn how to use these, they are actually very, very effective. If you want to do something like edge a lawn with one of these, if you were edging a piece of grassland, well, you might as well piss in the wind, because that's not going to edge anything. But that's where your English spade is fine. You can edge along quite happily. But I've learnt now, if I'm digging a hole, to use one of these. Sometimes, however, there is a compromise, and you can get an English spade with a point on. Now, these are wonderful things. Well, I tend not to use them for, well, you can use them for digging a hole, but you don't have that angle. You've still got to get down. But what they are excellent for is getting in amongst, say, a clump of hostas or perennial plants, because of that point, you can get right down into the rootstock. Away you go. And it's much easier. And you can dig out a nice clump of hostas or whatever just so easily. There, look at that. Piece of cake, eh? So there's a whole range of them. I also have one like this that's narrower. You've seen me use it before, and it's curved. Again, that's another excellent example of a spade for dividing plants. But we were brought up using this typical English spade, and we would laugh at when we saw the Americans using these. I'm not laughing so much now I'm older and I've got to look after me back a bit. Good tool. It's really beautiful. I'm sat here with a cup of coffee and I'm just having a break at the moment. Some deliveries have been made of some gravel and some ballast and some pea gravel. So I'm going to start. God, it really is beautiful today. I think it's the 15th of October, something like that. I'm just showing it. It's just, you can see I'm putting that fabric down, that weed barrier, and then another layer of 2 or 3 inches of ballast on the top, and then we'll top it off with pea gravel once I've wackered it down again. I was going on earlier about spades. Actually, I don't know if that's going to go on this video, but the hole I was digging was for this. This is a nice little Ilex Lichtenthalii. You've seen it before at Eggleston, but you can see it has the lovely long linear leaves. Gorgeous, isn't it? I'm having to keep the hose pipe out at the moment because of the some stuff is still drying out, but we are due quite a lot of rain. There is down there a fatsia. I've never been very keen on them. And I am in two minds as to whether to allow it to depart this earth or not. I could put something in there that's more interesting than that big green bastard. Look at this twat. It's a bloody twat, it really is. But it is dramatic. This is Kiftskate. It's now mid-October and it's still growing like hell. Look at that up there. Now, and their shoots are red and pink and healthy looking. The spikes are as spiky as bloody spiky things. Yeah, look at it. I really don't know why I'll keep it, but there is something rather dramatic about it. So we'll give it its. You can see it's even growing from the base. Great big new shoots. Now the thing is, not being grafted, because it's a Kiftskate seedling, it doesn't matter if anything comes from the base. It's not going to be from the rootstock, so it's all going to be the same. But that there represents about 1/4 of the growth. I've taken 3/4 off because I can't cope with it. I would say some of those now are from the base about 10 foot, and that's a 1/4 of the growth. So you just think of the vigor of this thing. You can see why it's a tree rose. Christ knows where it's going to go next year. But, there you go. Never mind. That little maple, I wish I knew what it was. Well, I know it's a bloody maple, but you know. But the linear one has really turned in the last couple of days. Cotoito Comanche. Perhaps that's it. But it's lovely, isn't it? Look at that lovely colour on that linear foliage. When that gets bigger, it's going to be so dramatic. Ignore the pots on this side. I'm trying to plant, because there's so much stuff here to plant, I'm trying to just pace myself and just plant a couple of things a day. There we are. There's the last layer of ballast. I've whackered it down again, so it's nice and firm. On top of this now, we can start bringing in pea gravel and get a picture of what it looks like finished. Should get a couple of inches on here. Nice thick layer. And I'll whacker that down as well. There we are, it's just about done. The cameraman wants to follow me onto the pier, although it is a pier without any steps yet. And that's it. Solid as a rock. Oh. Bird shit. The birds seem to perch on this. I hadn't thought about that. Doves, so there's about 20 doves on here this morning. Ringneck doves. Well, collared doves. Ringneck is what sometimes you want to do to them. Yeah, it's all finished, done. Can't say any more. It's got a 3-inch layer of pea gravel, and it's now just awaiting the seal of approval. Is it alright to sit on, Tucker? Oi. Yeah, he's not bothered. It'll be nice when all the bulbs have come up. We'll have a proper look in the spring. It's a very pleasant evening. Not sunny, it's been overcast all day, and I've had to do some slash and burn, the last of it I think. Clearing off the pond of all the old rubbish. It's going to be dug right back out, that pond. I'm not looking forward to that job. I'll be starting that in the spring. And it'll probably take me most of next summer to get right, because I want to make a really good job of it. I want it to last many, many years. Yeah, but it's quite nice down here at the end of the day. I don't know what it is today. I think it's about the 17th of October, something like that. I don't know. It's a Monday. I'm starting to get out of the habit of thinking every day now is a Saturday. Yeah. So we've got that to do, but the main job I want to do down here, it's a bit dark now, but you can see these string lines. I've got to dig some trenches and some post holes and put those big pads in. That's those concrete things you can see there. Unfortunately, the ground really slopes. So there's a whole load, that's what the barrow's there, of shifting to do. Yeah. I thought retirement was meant to be sort of like easy, but it's got to be done. And worse still is there's a great big root there from a sorbus. It was a big one. It's about 12 inches across, so I've got to dig that out. Yeah. Thankfully, in some respects, there's a couple of a few days of rain due. So we'll just have to think about things for a bit and have a rest. There is a standoff here. You can see that rat. He's been stood there for an hour watching that. It's just got a little run under the path there. He will get it, but it will mean he will have to stand there for 4, 5, 6 hours. He's also getting on a bit for such standoffs. Oi! You silly old fucker. Come on indoors. Get something nice.